When looking for the truth, people are drawn to history. In recent years, there have been controversies and speculation about the actual location, and this has sparked debates among scholars, historians, and religious leaders, with some claiming that the discovery of Mount Sinai in Saudi Arabia is proof of the accuracy of the Bible, while others argue that it is nothing more than a myth. Mount Sinai is a biblical mountain believed to be located in the Sinai Peninsula of Egypt, but is now heavily debated to be in the Arabian Peninsula. According to the scriptures, on Mount Sinai, God descended on it and covered the mountain in thunder, smoke, and fire, and Moses received the 2 stone tablets that carried the 10 commandments, inscribed by God with his finger. Also, at this mount, the God of Israel made a covenant with them, and gave them the guidelines that would later serve as the cornerstones for all the now existing Western legal systems. What spurred the idea to look for Mount Sinai in Saudi Arabia? Every Bible dictionary known to man typically has maps that mark a location in the Sinai Peninsula. But if you look very closely at some of these maps, some have question marks or asterisks because 8 mountain summits are thought to be the real Mount Sinai. The most well-known summit is at the St. Catherine Monastery. What is peculiar about this particular summit is that it was inspired by a mystic's vision rather than any archaeological study. Some explorers have explored the proposed location of Mount Sinai in Saudi Arabia. The explorers, led by American researcher Ron Wyatt, have produced several pieces of evidence to support their claim, including geological features, ancient artifacts, and biblical descriptions. A Bible archaeologist also claimed to have found Mount Sinai in Saudi Arabia. One of the most significant pieces of evidence offered by the explorers is the presence of a mountain in Saudi Arabia that matches the description of Mount Sinai in the Bible. Mount Sinai, according to the book of Exodus, was a burning mountain, shrouded in cloud and fire when God descended upon it. The explorers' Mount Sinai is a volcanic peak in Saudi Arabia known as Jabal al-Lawz, which has been found to retain signs of ancient volcanic activity, including lava flows and ash deposits. All the reports that were made by Ron Wyatt and David Fasold when they investigated the Jabal al-Lawz had all the telltale signs of the true Mount Sinai. David Fasold was unfortunately taken into custody by Saudi authorities, where he enjoyed a horrifying week of being falsely accused. The King's Council accused Fasold of robbing Saudi Arabia of its ancient treasure. Every available piece of evidence, video and picture that Fasold gathered to prove his claim was taken away from him by the Saudi Arabian government. Again, after investigating the Jabal al-Lawz case in 1984, Ron Wyatt and his sons were held in Saudi Arabian custody and questioned for 75 days. After so many back and forth discussions, the team was able to get government approval to explore the supposed Mount Sinai. The Jabal al-Lawz is surrounded by barbed wire and a chain-link fence in the heart of a Saudi Arabian military reservation. The goal of this mission to Saudi Arabia was to reach this off-limits, politically sensitive archaeological site. According to current societal claims, Mount Sinai, one of the Christian, Jewish, and Islamic religion's holiest sites, is the Jabal Makla, located in the Jabal al-Lawz mountain range. The Middle East expert and foundation president claimed that the reason most experts think Exodus is a hoax is that almost no available evidence that validates the account in the Bible has been uncovered at the legendary Mount Sinai in the Sinai Peninsula, Egypt. What if all this time the researchers have been looking for evidence in the wrong place? I will explain evidence that supports the biblical account of Mount Sinai that these teams found at the Jabal al-Lawz mountain in Saudi Arabia. Researchers noticed the Jabal al-Lawz peaks, blackened peaks, which appear to have been burnt by the sun or fire. They split one of the rocks in half, and it revealed its plain brown core. What kind of scorching sun or fire would have burned the rock's top layer into a black marble glaze and left the inner core of the rock intact? Referencing the book of Exodus, chapter 19, verses 18 to 19, when the God of Israel descended on Mount Sinai, he appeared in form of fire that shook the mountain violently, and the smoke of the fire was like smoke from a brick kiln. Another chapter of the book of Exodus supports this claim that when the people of Israel gathered at the foot of the mountain, the glory of God descended on the summit of Mount Sinai in the form of fire. According to the Bible, Pharaoh released the Israelites to Moses and pursued them with his army. The Red Sea split into 2 after God commanded Moses to stretch his rod over the sea, and the Israelites crossed the ocean safely. The chariot-riding Egyptian army that pursued them got drowned after the Israelites got to the other side. Another notable piece of evidence was discovered by Dr. Lennart Moller, a Swedish scientist who claimed to have found a circle-like object that looked very similar to a chariot wheel in coral in that area, and the wood and metal of the circle-like wheel had long decayed. Another piece of evidence is that on the path that leads to Jabal al-Lawz from the beach, there is a massive split rock with evidence of water erosion at the base of the rock, even though the area is desert. Many researchers think this split in the rock is evidence of the rock that God gave Moses the instruction to strike, from which water miraculously flowed forth to quench the thirst of the Israelites. These naturally occurring rocks that have been polished by water lie in the stream bed that flows down from the split rock. This long-gone watershed provides enough proof that a fast-flowing stream once flowed into a lake big enough to supply water for millions of Israelites in the desert. Another piece of evidence found by the researchers is an altar close to the mountain's base. This altar is similar to the altar Moses made out of uncut stones at Mount Sinai's base. The researchers claim to have found this site covered with pictures of people bowing to these cows and bulls. What is noteworthy about these petroglyphs is the fact that they are unique to only that region. The Egyptian bulls, the gods Apis and Hathor, were carved on the altar in the shape of bulls and cows. What makes this even weirder is that Saudi Arabians never reared cattle, and that has questioned why cattle would be etched in stone. That can only be possible unless they were transported there by the Israelites. Another researcher found sculpted stumps of stone pillars that were set up by Moses to represent the 12 tribes of Israel, but they were toppled over, crushed into pieces, and scattered close to the V-shaped altar. When the stones were counted, the researchers discovered they were 12 together. Are these stones possibly the remnants of the pillars that Moses had set up to represent the 12 tribes of Israel? The last piece of evidence we will consider is the boundaries God instructed Moses to put around the mountain. The book of Exodus, chapter 19, verse 12, explains that God asked Moses to use rocks to draw a boundary line around the mountain's perimeter and to instruct the people of Israel to make sure to not cross the boundaries, go up the mountain, or even approach the stone boundaries, as going against this warning would result in death. The researchers found a pile of sun-baked rocks placed in a semicircle at 400-yard intervals all around Jabal al-Lawz. It is believed that the neatly laid rocks are the sacred boundaries that God instructed Moses to set around the mountain's base. Did Moses arrange these rocks found at the base of Jabal al-Lawz? Although all the evidence provided by the researchers is undeniably credible and convincing, it is crucial to note that there is ongoing skepticism about this evidence too. Many critics of this evidence believe that it is mainly circumstantial and does not offer any form of support for their theory. One of the critics' viewpoints on this theory is that researchers are heavily reliant on the descriptions provided in the book of Exodus, which is very challenging to verify. Although Exodus describes Mount Sinai as a burning mountain, it is also important to remember that this Bible text was written thousands of years ago and has undergone a series of interpretations, additions, and deletions over time. Also, proposing that the actual location of Mount Sinai is the Jabal al-Lawz mountain invalidates all the archaeological evidence found in the Sinai Peninsula located in Egypt. For instance, archaeologists have discovered several ancient structures close to the Sinai Peninsula, including a chapel, a monastery, and a church, which indicates that the mountain was an important religious site in ancient times. Despite all of these criticisms, there is still a fierce and ongoing debate regarding the validity of the Jabal al-Lawz as a true Mount Sinai, because to some religious faiths, this discovery is a confirmation of their religious beliefs and proof of the accuracy of the Bible, and to some, it is a myth or a conspiracy theory. It also raises important questions about the role of archaeological and historical studies in validating religious beliefs. Some believe that scientific and empirical evidence should serve as the ultimate proof of truth, and some believe that this discovery on Mount Sinai in Saudi Arabia is proof of the accounts of the stories written in the Bible and a possible and major breakthrough in our understanding of the biblical account of the history of the Israelites. One feared implication of the validation of this theory is the political and cultural implications, and we have come to the end of this video. We hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new today. And as always, keep exploring.